Hi, I'm Suresh Venkat. I'm in conversation with Ganesh Lakshminarayanan, President and Managing Director of Dell India.
Thanks, Suresh.
Mr. Lakshminarayanan, how are things going at Dell India?
Dell India is doing great. I can't talk much about it, given that we're in a quiet period, but we are pretty bullish.
All right. So let's move from Dell India to the kind of topics that you've been talking about for a while now.
Yeah.
One of those topics is corporate social responsibility and IT for change at the bottom end of the social pyramid. What is the view of CSR at Dell internally?
You know, I look at CSR as not something we do above and beyond our core business. I think being corporate, socially responsible also means good business. And I'll tell you why, right? If you look at the corporate history, you go back to the history and history of East India Company, you would say that they had no social responsibility. Their whole agenda was let's deplete the resources and make our shareholders happy. And then you get into the era where the corporations started doing social projects. They built townships, they built schools, they built hospitals.
Very far from their core competence.
Far from their core competency, right? So I think, you know, what CSR for us at Dell means is we know our technologies and products and services really bring a difference to the life of people, right? And we want to stay close to our strengths and we want to leverage strengths. You know, I'm not saying building houses and hospitals is not good, but I think just the nature of the work we do in terms of bringing technology to improve, for example, education or healthcare, and that is how we look at it. And we have been having a very structured CSR program for the last 2-3 years. You know, we are now contributing close to 1% of our pre-tax profits globally towards CSR. We have a global giving council, right? And we have selected specific target areas, right? Technology for education, technology for healthcare, and technology for environment.
Those are the sort of pillars that your CSR stands for.
And so we have stayed closer, in the last about 3 years, we have invested close to $10 million in CSR activities in India. Globally, we have invested, I would say, about $40 million, pre-tax profits, all public. You know, what is really interesting, the second part of the CSR is, if you make CSR close to your core strengths, you can drive your employee participation, right? Today, we measure 72% of our employees have contributed in one or more of CSR activities at Dell, right? Second, close to about 10% of our population now directly give their own money, apart from their time, to the charity which we have selected, predefined, right? So this concept of direct giving to charity on an ongoing basis, that's new to India, and we have brought it to India as well. So my view of CSR is being financially, ethically, socially, and environmentally responsible is good business, right? And staying closer to what you do as a core product and core strength and core service and make that extend to your CSR activity, that's the most effective way to do this. Anything beyond that is not going to be very effective.
There's been a lot of talk in recent times about how IT can drive social change in India. The area in which you work in, affordable computing, is clearly one of those areas. We've been hearing the cost of computers will go down, it will become more affordable, but it seems that the mobile has become the computer because there are mobiles available at all price points. What is preventing computers from getting cheaper and reaching to the masses?
You know, I would not look at this as mobiles versus tablets. The end user devices are going to take a lot of different form factors, right? But the solution to the problem is not making end user devices cheaper. Let's take education, for example. Today, you could argue that every school, most of the schools in my state of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, have a computer or more in every school. We have given them the computers. That's a first step, right? But the real difference is going to come when you have content which is core curriculum taught through using computers. You're not teaching computers a separate subject.
Using the computer as a tool to teach
education,
physics or chemistry or maths.
And then you're connecting what is our rarest commodity today in India, which is effective teachers to kids using technology. So having affordable end user devices is one part of the problem.
But using technology
to build total solutions is the ideal solution. And the cost is not in the end user device, the cost is in the content, right? So I would look at this as a full ecosystem which has to develop, and it will develop definitely, because you would see today that education system is completely changing using digital media, at least in private schools.
Ganesh Lakshminarayanan, the Indian software industry has taken giant strides on the innovation front. Indian innovators, or what's called Jugaad innovation or impromptu or local frugal innovation, has also seen considerable movement. One area that's not seen enough innovation is the Indian hardware industry. Why?
You know, if you look at the software industry, the history of software industry, you see first that we started doing most development and test offshore. Most of the thinking was still happening onshore. And then the Y2K boom hit, right? And the Y2K boom, what it actually did, even though it was considered mundane work, is that it actually brought domain expertise to a whole lot of people in India who understand the problems of the business, how to solve them, right? And when we grew from just doing development and testing to full platform solution, that domain knowledge really helped us, right? Now, if you look at the hardware side, the innovation is going to be driven by demand. So if you look at adoption of technology in India today, even though it's increasing, you would argue that it's very low even compared to developing markets.
Even now?
Even now, it's very low. So I'll give you some example.
With 900 million mobile connections and...
Yeah, so if you look at the mobility, it's increasing. But if you look at the full ecosystem of hardware, it's not there yet, right? So let's take, for example, today, we have about 10 in every 1,000 households have access to computer. In China, it's about 150. 18% of any of our small business has any adoption of technology, right? So once the demand reaches a particular point, then you will see suppliers come in, then we will see ecosystem
that will be the kickoff for
That'll be
innovation.
The kick, right? Demand is the kickoff on anything. And you look automobile industry, when did the innovation really start happening? When the adoption and the demand came to a point, now you got cars designed for the Indian market.
Also when policy liberalized enough for foreign manufacturers to set up in India. And
I think there is a lot of effort from the government on electronics hardware manufacturing. What the industry is looking for is stable tax regimes, which makes manufacturing in India easier. And the best way to do that is to have policies which drive adoption. You know, make technology buying the priority lending sector for the banks. Let the small businesses go buy technology on preferred lending methods, right? That will have adoption of technology.
All right, so that's on the hardware industry. Let's move now away from the hardware industry to the cloud. Many large enterprises, many of the kinds of enterprises that you deal with who are consumers understand the power of the cloud and they understand the virtual data.
Yeah.
Like you said, many small businesses in India have completely no computerization whatever and no digitization whatever. What is effective small business strategy when it comes to the cloud? You
know, it's really amazing because if you look at our small business adoption, we don't have any legacy. We don't have any computers, we don't have client server, we don't have mainframes. I think the small business industry in India is ripe for adopting cloud. They don't have to go for a whole capex investment.
They can jump generations and storage,
right? So it's really unbelievable. I'll just give you an example, right? We have a customer who is running a dairy farm. It's a Chitale dairy farm. They have put the whole thing on cloud. It's about cows, right? So when do the cows have to be inseminated? When do they give milk? When do they have to be vaccinated? All that data is stored in cloud and disseminated to the farmers on their mobile devices. You know, it's like taking cows to the cloud. So there are examples of this in other small businesses where lack of technology adoption is actually a good thing. You can move to cloud much more easily than people with established data centers in their premises.
It's how we leapfrog to GSM technology without going through CDMA.
Absolutely, there's a lot of parallels
with mobile and telecom. Right, Ganesh Lakshminarayanan, we're about to end this interview, but the last question I have for you, the top 2 trends that you've spotted that nobody else has spotted that's going to impact the Indian IT industry.
That's going to be...
2 trends that are on your mind, which should be on every CEO's mind.
I think you would see small product companies getting adoption faster. So the big companies have to embrace them, right? Either they have to buy them out or develop their own technologies. Otherwise, the big companies will become irrelevant. And then second trend I would say is, given the adoption of mobile phones in India, you will see a lot more innovation coming out of India on mobiles than other hardware platforms.
Right. So look at innovation in small companies, look at acquiring small companies or build smallness within a large company. I would imagine that's one strategy. And the second, look at mobile very, very closely. Ganesh Lakshminarayanan, President and Managing Director of Dell India, thank you very much for talking to us.